Hello everyone, Dr. G here. Many years ago, I had a new student. He was recently retired, very enthusiastic, very gung-ho about learning the guitar. He had never played the guitar before, total beginner, and he hadn't purchased a guitar at the time. And when he was asking me about guitars, he told me that the one that he really wanted to buy was this model that was played by his favorite guitar player. And it was a custom-made guitar, an artist series guitar. And he wanted to really invest this money into it, even though he was a beginner. The guitar costs around $7,200 or $300. But his justification was, well, first, it's played by his favorite guitar player, so he's got to love it, right? The second was, I'm really, really serious about learning, so I'm willing to make such an investment in a really high quality guitar. I'm not going to mess around with cheaper guitars. And when I heard him out, I said, let's try something. Let's go to the store. I'll meet with you there. But before you buy that guitar, I want to compare it with the same model guitar, but the cheaper ones. Maybe one that's really cheap, one that's a little more expensive, and maybe a third that's over $1,000. But they're all going to be significantly cheaper than the artist model that he intended to buy. He agreed, and when we met, I grabbed the other three guitars. One was about $400, $500, another was $800, and there was one that was about $1,200, and then his guitar. So I had him sit down. I wanted him to feel the neck on each guitar, just listen to the open strings strumming through, the sustain, the quality of the sound, acoustically, amplified. We went through each one, and I said, I want you to determine which one, if there is one, that really stands out. And there was one that really resonated with him, that he was really drawn to. And of course, he was convinced that that was the one that he had originally intended to buy. I took the guitars, I played them all, he heard them, he couldn't tell which one was which by visually seeing them, and he actually picked the same one. When I revealed to him that it was an $800 guitar, he couldn't believe it. And I said, well, this is the guitar for you. This is the one that really grabs you most, way more than the other ones, including the artist series model that you wanted to buy. And he went and bought it. When we were leaving, he said to me, I can't believe that guitar sounded so good to me. It's almost a tenth of the price. I said, well, when it comes to guitars, there's a lot of subjectivity. You want to use the feel and the sound and how that really connects to you. And that should be the driving force, because he wasn't buying the guitar from a collectability standpoint either. If you're doing that, that's a total different story. If you're just looking at it from the playability and the feel, the tone, it doesn't matter really. It only matters what connects with you most. The other thing I explained to him is it was a solid body guitar. And in many cases, the electronics and the amplification are going to have more of an impact on how the guitar sounds than the type of wood and all of these other factors. Now, that was a solid body electric Telecaster guitar. When it comes to an acoustic guitar, the materials and the wood do play a little bit more of a significant role, but not nearly as much as you might think. This guitar that I'm holding and that you heard in the beginning of the video is $300. Laminate top, by most people's standards, a really cheap guitar. And I have played and owned guitars that were many thousands of dollars. And this guitar feels and sounds and does everything I want it to do. In comparison to having a $7,000 or $8,000 guitar when I have to go and perform, and if something were to happen to it and it got destroyed, it'd be expensive to replace. This guitar, if something happens to it, it's easy to replace and inexpensive. So for me, this is much more practical. But the notion that the most expensive guitars are always going to be the best is nonsense. If you look at someone like Eddie Van Halen, he put his guitar together. He bought a neck, he bought a body, the one that became the famous Frankenstrat, and he paid around $120. That guitar became one of the most, if not the most iconic rock guitar ever, a tone that people to this day are continuing to chase. Again, not a particularly expensive guitar, but what Eddie Van Halen would often say, and rightfully so, is that the majority of all the sound that you make and the way that you play comes from you, your hands, and it emanates from you as a player. The guitar has some significance, of course, but ultimately the way you're going to sound when you start to develop your own style, honing way of playing, you're going to sound like you regardless of what kind of guitar you're playing. And that's really the thing that you should be focusing on more than the details and the specifications. And it's a hole that a lot of players fall down into. I've fallen into it a long time ago. The problem is that you end up spending way more time thinking that this particular kind of neck with this wood or these size frets or whatever, that this is going to be the game changer for you. It's not. You're going to spend so much more time worrying about the specs on a guitar and other equipment than playing. So you want to spend the time really honing your craft, more so than on trying to find out and keep track on the latest, greatest amplifier that just came out or whatever gadget there is. With that, Don't just dismiss those other cheaper guitars just because of the price tag. You might find that they sound and play better than the guitars that are more than double, triple, even 10 times as much. Nowadays, guitars, you can buy them for $200 and they play and they sound really good. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys around soon.